All right, so I have Kayleena Keene here. I am so happy to have you, and I've been excited to have you on since we met last month in Gadsden for the BellaDonna Division show. How are you, ma'am?
Yeah, I am great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while since I've seen you, but I'm excited to catch up and talk to you.
Yeah, and you look amazing
Thank
today,
you so much.
actually. Like, I
Thank
love the
you.
glasses and the scarf and the lipstick you got going on and your hair. Like, girl,
Thank
yes.
you. I had to channel a little bit of the Keen in here. That's where the lips
Mhm.
came from, and the hair's still here. So I had to let everyone know she's still rocking and rolling.
Yes, I love it. So we're just gonna dive in, and I'm gonna ask you the question that I ask everyone on my show, and that's when did you fall in love with wrestling?
The most famous question. So definitely I have the same story of when I was little, very, very little. I want to say maybe 7, maybe. I used to watch wrestling with my dad. Me and my dad, we used to go to all the wrestling shows. I'm actually from Buffalo, New York. So anytime WWE came here, me and my dad, we were there. If we went all out, we even rented limousines and all that, thinking we were the bosses up in here, but we weren't. But yeah, that's when I fell in love with wrestling, and uh, it's been the love of my life ever since.
So you said you guys would rent limousines and go all out. Like, what exactly were you guys doing with those limousines, as a part of the wrestling experience, though?
Literally nothing. And my dad, he's a big show off. So literally, he just wanted everyone to know, hey, we are here and we're not leaving until we see some great wrestling. We would just ride in there with our drinks in hand, coming in with our merch, being marks for anyone who I loved at the time. I believe at the time, it definitely was like Randy Orton, I was rocking, and Jeff Hardy, I was rocking too. So yeah, we were just extra at the time, honestly.
I mean, I feel like wrestling is one of the perfect sports to be extra for. Like, I mean, it's just like, I mean, I never really did anything like that, but at the most I would wear, shirts and everything. And then once I started buying titles, I would carry my titles with me. So,
Oh
so that's
yeah.
always the funnest thing. And then it was even more fun when I started getting autographs too. So that's always the coolest thing.
That's what sucked for me. I never had the chance, which is so sad, to get any autographs from people. Actually, I had one. I actually did one autograph, two autographs. I had like a package of action figures, and on
Mhm.
one side, it was actually Kurt Angle. And on the other side, at the time, his name was Mr. Anderson.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, I ended up getting autographs from them. And at the same show, I got a picture with Jeff Hardy. So I was living my best life.
Oh my god, I would love to get a picture with both of the Hardys because it's like we're siblings in my head,
Yeah,
because we have the same last name. So I'm just like, to if I were to ever meet them, I would probably flip out.
yeah, for sure. Be that big mark that we all are deep inside.
Yes. So when did you decide that you want to pursue it as a career?
Well, like I said, when I was younger, and at the time, women's wrestling, they were called divas at the time. So, like when I was little, I would tell my dad, I'd be like, Dad, I want to be a diva when I grow up, type of thing, and I want to be just like Lita and like Trish, and that's what I want to do. And unfortunately, like as I got older, wrestling kind of like it left me a little bit, and I was like, it's not possible. Like I have no idea how these wrestlers even became wrestlers, and I'm from Buffalo, New York. Even though Beth Phoenix, she's from Buffalo, New York.
Mhm.
I believe she had a background in wrestling though, which I did not. Like I'm an athlete and everything, but I did nothing wrestling related. So I was like, it's not even possible. So literally, I want to say like 2 years ago is when in my mind I'm like, all right, I need to look into this more. And I felt it was more possible. So then that was 2 years ago. And then a year from then, I was like, I'm going to actually start doing research. And then I did the research and I ended up finding the place that I graduated from, which is Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. As everyone knows, it's taught by Seth Rollins and Merrick Brave and our good old crotch. So yeah, and I decided to go there. I put everything into it, all my money, and I just went. And now I'm here.
Okay, like what other sports did you play that gave you the athletic background so you could prepare?
Yeah, so in middle school and a little bit into high school, I was a basketball player. And then back in going into high school, I did track and field. I was a sprinter. And then I also did a cheerleading. I was a cheerleader. I was the captain of my cheer team. And then what else did I do? I believe that was it. Yeah, track and field, basketball, and I was a cheerleader.
Yeah, you say that's it, but to me in my head, that's a whole lot, girl. That is a whole lot. But it sounds like, that gave you sort of like that conditioning to prepare you to become a wrestler. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So did you face any opinions that was like opposing you to become a wrestler? Did you face any adversity in that aspect?
I was actually really quiet at first about me being a wrestler. And I don't think, especially like at the time when I was saying it, I don't think people really thought I was going to go for it. She was like, oh, this is just like a dream that everyone has. It's like, oh, I wish I could do this. This is something I would like to do, but like, I'm not going to actually go and do it. So I don't think people believed me or actually thought I was going to do it. So when I did it though, not only was everyone like surprised by it, but I actually have a very good support system for it. My friends, my family, and I had no friends who was into wrestling either for a little bit. I had like one or two friends, but things happened. But on that aspect, I was all alone in it. So when I did it, it was because I wanted to find that wrestling family.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that you actually had that support system because it's just like, depending on what type of dreams you have, it's just like sometimes you'll have a support system, and other times, in most cases, you wind up not having a support system and you wind up having to support yourself until, like you said, you find that family that's, just like you and sort of pursuing the same thing. So I,
Yeah.
so I am glad that you did have that though.
Thank you so much. I am too. I don't know where I would be without my support system. Honestly, they helped me through a lot. So
Yeah, definitely. So you mentioned that you trained at Black and Brave Wrestling Academy. So
I did indeed.
yeah, so could you tell me any great lessons that you have learned so far that's sort of carrying you, as you sort of start in your wrestling career?
Yeah, literally not. They taught me everything I know, but I would say the big things that I took to heart, and like one of the big things that like people really like about me is my character. So when you train there, they really say like, you got to make yourself stand out. And what's important is the psychology of wrestling. And at the end of the day, it's not all about the moves that you do, it's the story that you tell. So every time I step in the ring, I really do try and bring out my character, and I really do try to tell a story to whoever is watching, because that's what they're going to remember. You can do all the 450s in the world and all the moonsaults in the world, but people are going to be amazed by that, sure. But at the end of the match and at the end of the night, they're not going to remember the exact moves that you do. They're going to remember the story that led up to that match. And that's what they always said as well. So yeah, that's one thing that really, those are the things that really like stuck to me and that I'm going to take throughout my whole wrestling career for sure.
Okay. And if I can ask, had you ever really trained? Have you trained with Seth Rollins before? Because I know he's
Oh,
definitely famous in WWE. So I just wanted to ask and just get that out of the way.
yeah, no, I never even met him before I trained at Black and Brave. So even like when I saw the school, I literally just Googled like wrestling academies, and that actually came up. And when I saw it, and I was like, no, Seth Rollins, like, no way, this can't be true. It's not him. And then I just kept going into it, and I was like, oh crap, like this is taught by him. That little mark was like, oh no. But like that's why I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta go out all out, and I have to train with the best that there is. So no, I haven't had even met Kobe. Seth, I'm sorry. I'm so used to calling him Kobe because that's when you train there, like we don't call him Seth, we call him by his real name.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time I ever met Seth in person. So
okay. So you did mention that, one of the things that you learned the most about was your character and how important that is along with the athleticism. What exactly was the inspiration behind your character? Because I know when I met you in Gadsden last month, that was one of the coolest things I had ever seen because I had never seen a character like that before. So what was your
thank
inspiration behind
you.
that?
I'd say definitely like little pieces is everything. So like I would say the me wanting to tell a story every single time I step in the ring and how I move in the ring, I definitely like was inspired by like shows and like movies. So like, and also by a background in dancing. So like all the ticking and stuff that I do, it's because I know how to dance and like I can robotically like dance. So that's where that came from. But I would say like my demeanor and like how cute or like goofy or how quick emotions that I change during my matches, I would say that comes off from shows that I like to watch. And then the actual idea of the puppet, I'd say definitely came from a little bit of my own personal life. Because I was like diagnosed with anxiety and depression, and just throughout my whole life, I was a very big people pleaser, and I always put everyone above myself, which is not a bad thing until you realize that like your whole life was nothing but the other people in your life, and you did nothing for yourself. And so my whole life, I felt like I was being controlled by others, and I had no say, and I just never did anything I wanted to do. And so I was like, well, what is that? Like, who does that? What does that represent? And I was dabbling with like little dolls, like Chucky. I don't know if you ever seen Chucky, like the scary doll, little Chucky. Yeah. I was like, no, that's not really sticking with me. And then I was like, what about a marionette puppet? Because they're controlled by strings and stuff. So I was like, we're going to rock and roll with that, because I didn't see anyone like that before. And I'm very big on being different and out there. So, yeah, that's definitely where the inspiration came from for sure.
Wow, that's really deep. And that's a very real, struggle that people deal with, including myself, actually. So that
Yeah.
really resonates with me in terms of, how I deal also with anxiety as well and being a people pleaser. Like,
Yeah.
that is something that's very real, to me. And I actually have a greater appreciation for your character more now that I know that.
Oh,
Because
thank you.
seriously, like that's a story that needs to be told, and that's something that needs to be put out there more in wrestling. So the idea that that character came from that along with other things, it's like it was all these puzzle pieces, just put it together into a really nice beautiful picture of a
Yeah.
character that you have. So that is really amazing, and I'm proud of you for having the guts to share your personal experience and putting it out there in wrestling, because
Yeah.
the further you go, that would actually save somebody, you know
Yeah,
that would
that's
save
honestly my
somebody's
goal.
life.
Yeah,
So
I'm glad that you said that. I literally, when I was thinking about the character, I was like, a lot of people like to tell like fairy tale stories. They like to tell the story of, yeah, I struggled, but I came out on top, and now it's a happy ever after. Not everyone always gets to that happy ever after. Not
right.
everyone only struggles for that little bit, and then that struggle is quickly over. Some people go through that struggle all their life, and over and over and over, and sometimes they feel like they never get that happy ending. So that's what I wanted to bring out to people, and to let people know that everyone struggles. I've struggled, and I still struggle. I even still struggle with my anxiety and depression now. Even right before I go out for my match, I say I'm freaking out and freaking out. I question myself all the time. I'm like, should I even be doing this? Like, I can't do this. Right before my matches, kid you not, right before my match, I'm like about to cry. Like, I can't do it. And then as soon as I step out, it's like those nerves are completely gone. Like, it's crazy. And that just makes me feel like I'm meant to be here sometimes. So
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. It's like once you finally get to the thing that you've been practicing and planning for, then once you actually get to it, you're just like, but then, once you finally, step into that prepared place, where
Yeah.
you're good, it's okay. So I
Yes.
definitely respect you for that. And
Thank you.
that actually reminds me a lot of AJ Lee too, because I don't know
Oh,
if you ever read any of her books. Well, she has a book out, like an autobiography called
I heard
Crazy
she
My
had a book.
Superpower. I definitely recommend it. She was talking about, her struggles with bipolar disorder and
Wow.
how she sort of used that to sort of tap into the character that she had on television for years, you know. And
Interesting.
she
I gotta read this book.
Yeah, you do. I definitely recommend it. And then she also and now of course since she's retired from wrestling, she's an advocate for mental health, So that's something that she does, but it's your whole story just reminded me of her and her struggles with that as well. So,
Oh, I
yeah.
appreciate that so much. I love when people can make those connections. It makes me feel good.
Oh, definitely. So, who has been your biggest inspiration in your evolution as a women's wrestler?
As a women's wrestler, well, my just inspirations in general is definitely Randy Orton. He's always been my favorite because you just can't help but to watch him, and that's what I want for people with me and my wrestling. I want it to be where like you can't help but to watch me because I'm just that good. With his wrestling and his promos. So that's what he inspires me a lot for that. But women wise, I'm gonna bring out my little mark, and it's weird because uh, I was trained by her now husband, Becky Lynch.
Mhm.
She was more of an inspiration for me personally than wrestling wise. I say that she really pushed me to actually go into wrestling because I was so afraid and I was like, this is like crazy. Like this is so unheard of. Why would I do it? And I just feel like I would make it. And I feel like Becky came into the mentality of like, I don't care what other people think. I'm this strong woman and I'm gonna do what I want to do. And
Mhm.
so she really inspired me a lot, especially when she became the man for WWE. Oh my gosh, her movement was insane. I was the biggest one possible. Um, so yeah, she's my big inspiration personally. But as for like when I study wrestling, because every wrestler has those wrestlers that they study to really tap into who they want to be as a wrestler.
Mhm.
I looked into AJ Lee a lot. I looked into Tara slash Victoria.
Yeah.
She was an OG. Who else did I look into? I love Lita. I love Trish. Paige. I freaking love Paige. She's great. She was so different, and that's what I loved about her. She was so hard hitting, and she was just true to herself. And that's why I was like, oh, I'm gonna study you big time. But yeah, those were my big inspirations for sure.
Yeah, that's a lot of good ones. And Randy Orton, he kind of has that whole I don't know how to describe what it is that he has, but his character is just so devilish now. And you would think that it would be worn out by now, but we're still watching him years later.
Because he's just that good. Like it's
Right. Like he's just that good and he's just so good at his characters. And I'll never forget when he was on the Stone Cold Broken Skull session show, he actually said that he feels like he had just gotten into his groove with promos just last year. And I'm sitting here like,
like
what?
seriously
Just
right.
last year? Are you kidding
You would
me?
never know. You would never know. That's the
Right.
thing.
Not at all. And it's just like, I love, the amount of women that you mentioned with Paige and AJ Lee and Victoria and all those women. So those are
Yeah.
really good inspirations to have. And your story about Becky Lynch really touches me too. And yeah, she
Oh,
did get married today. I'm so
he
happy for her.
did.
Yeah,
Yay.
they got married today. So congratulations to them.
Yes,
They're an adorable couple.
they are
And their
great.
baby is gorgeous, I'm sure.
Tell me
I'm
about
sure.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So technically, since you're not. I don't want to call you a brand new wrestler, but uh,
I
it's just
feel brand new,
like
girl. I
when I met you, you said that you were just wrestling your third match that day. And I remember just my mind just being blown like to bits when you said that. And I was just like, man, that's crazy. So, how exactly how exactly did you deal with the pandemic and how did it affect, your career and how did you pivot around that?
So when I trained at Black and Brave is when the pandemic like really hit.
Mhm.
So I trained there, and when I graduated, as soon as I graduated, I went back home for maybe like 2 months, and so the pandemic was still going on. Um, but shows were like slowly opening up. But when I came back, SCW, the promotion that I wrestled for, who's also the promoter is Merritt Brave and Crotch, they were doing Patreon at the time. So my very first match was on Patreon ever. Like, so my very first match wasn't even in front of a crowd. And that's like the crazy part and how like COVID really affected everything, because my first match was in a Patreon, which is totally, totally different than wrestling in front of crowds, because you don't have that crowd to really get your fire and feel the emotion of the crowd and just to really feel like a professional wrestler and to feel like you're performing and for people.
Mhm.
So that was the hardest part, I would say, is not being able to get that experience my very first time in wrestling in front of a crowd. And that affected me going into when the pandemic started to open up. And my like second match, I was in front of a crowd, and I was like, this is going to be totally different. It's nothing like Patreon, because we have these loud people, and it's like, I don't know how they react to me, and I don't know if they're going to like what I do. And then for me, it was hard because when I did my Patreon match, against Valentina Loca, I was a completely different character. I didn't even know who I was at the time.
Mhm.
And I always told myself, I was like, I did not want to wrestle without knowing who I was and what I was doing. But we're wrestlers. I did it anyways because they asked me to. And hey, I needed the first experience. So at that time, I wasn't even the puppet that you see today. So my second match in front of a crowd was the first time I brought out Kayleena Keene, which was terrifying because I just was figuring out who she was as a wrestler and outside of wrestling. So it was really hard to just bring her out like that, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So basically the pandemic sort of slowed you down but then didn't really slow you down at the same time.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a character, but then it's just like by the second and third match you had one and it was still very new to you.
Yes. See, I like how when people can like word things better than I can. Exactly like that. Like the pandemic slowed me down, but then it rushed me at the same time. So I had to bring out this new character that wasn't even fully developed yet. And so now I'm just wrestling and seeing what people like as I go on, instead of having that first match where it's like, okay, I might have this general idea, but I still kind of don't. So it's still very weird for me. It's still very weird.
Yeah, it's a work in progress, and that's always, a good thing because there are just so many places it could go. So,
Yeah.
I wouldn't feel discouraged about that at all. Like there's just so much more for you to do because it's just, beginning. So
Yes.
that's a good thing. So since we mentioned, your third match and everything being at the BellaDonna Division show Genesis, where I was really happy to meet you and so many talented women. Um,
Yes. So
how
many.
how did you feel, being on the card with so many great women like Jazz and like, Valentina Loca, who's been on the show before. I had her on the show before the
Yeah.
event and everything else like that. So how did you feel being on a card, an all female card with the likes of Jazz and the Woad and so many others?
First of all, not worthy. Definitely
Oh
not
God.
worthy. But as soon as I was contacted and heard that it was an all women's promotion and an all women's thing, my mind instantly was like, I have to do it. Like, you don't see a lot of those. And to get that chance to be on that show, I would miss it for the world. Like, just being in that locker room was the most amazing feeling, just to feel this, all that power of women.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like, it's unspeakable. It's very unspeakable. But yeah, meeting Jazz. Oh my God, who wouldn't want to meet Jazz? She's amazing. She's so humble. She's so great. Valentina Loca, she was actually my very first match. So it's always a pleasure working with her. I love her so much. Yeah, I love meeting all the different talents of women, because I like to see what all the women can do. Because all I hear is how we need more talented women. We need all these women, and then I get to meet the women that are out there, and I'm just like, wow, like us women, we're really coming out there. Don't sleep on us women. Like, we're great. We are very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, I felt it's so funny you said you felt like you weren't worthy. I felt the same thing being, in the locker room as, just a commentator. And it was my first time commentating too.
Yes, you
So,
did say that. Yeah,
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 so it's
yeah.
just like being, back there. That was my first time in a locker room with wrestlers ever in my life because I'd only
Oh,
been just a fan. So to be back there was just a very emotional time. You know,
yes, that's true.
afterward, I couldn't really be emotional in the moment while I was back there getting
Of course.
information, talking to people and everything. But after it was all over and I got some food, I just couldn't deal with I had to eat afterward, because I was super hungry, but I was just like, I just couldn't deal with it, and I was just really emotional about all of it. Like, I felt really unworthy too, because I was just like, these are like superheroes every
Yes,
day. Like, you
yes.
guys do this every day, and I'm just back here talking about it. And it's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
man, this is crazy. But just to be, in the midst of all of that stuff, with something that I'm passionate about, and definitely when it comes to women's wrestling, it meant the world to me. And then to see you in your third match and to meet you in your journey, it made me emotional because I'm just like,
Oh,
because there's just so many people with so many different stories of how they started.
yeah,
And then to see
yeah.
you just starting, it was just like I couldn't deal with it. It was just really emotional. Like if I talk about it too much, I'll start crying and
No,
I can't.
we don't need the waterworks today. We
Oh my
don't need
god,
it
not today.
today.
Not today.
Not today.
But I
Mm-mm.
was really proud to be a part of it and I can't wait, to
Yeah,
do more. So definitely
yeah.
it was great. It was
I'll keep
really
a lookout for you too, girl.
Oh yes.
More commentary. We hope. We
Oh,
hope to see it.
definitely. I'm commentating at the next Genesis event though. Yeah, in
That's
August.
great.
Yeah, I couldn't believe that either. That was emotional too. So I
Yeah.
was really happy about that. So one another question. How do you feel about the state of women's wrestling from what from any positive to how it could be improved?
Positive to being improved. So are we talking the independent scene?
Well, all of it, independent scene and mainstream, it doesn't really matter. Like
Mm,
you can just both of them.
yeah, yeah. I love the independent scene in general. I just love the idea of getting to travel and to meet many different women from all over the world and just to see what type of people and character that they are. I think it's great having the diversity too. Diversity is always the best policy. I don't really personally, it's hard to say what could be improved in like the independent scene, because in independent scene you're your own person. You do what you want to do, how you want to do it, when you want to do it. So in the independent scene you're just waiting, and you are truly being entertained because you don't know what's gonna happen. You can't really predict what's gonna happen, and I like not being able to predict what's gonna happen, and that's what I love about the independent scene. It's great. And then it's great how, promoters can book the matches that people want to see. And it's just, and it's going to be a hell of a time. For the mainstreaming, they are definitely evolving for sure. Because I remember before I even trained at Black and Brave, one of the reasons why I wanted to actually train was because I was watching the women's wrestling on TV, and I was just like, dang, like I get it. Charlotte Flair, she's a Flair. She's great. She backs up what she says in the ring. Yeah, but like I need something different WWE. I needed something different, and I was craving for more creativity. I was craving just for that little bit more. And so literally to myself, I was just like, I want to be that little bit more. I want to be that creativity that they need. I want to be that different person that they need. So that's what also drove me to train at Black and Brave. Especially at that time, they were trying, I get it, they were trying to throw stuff at the wall and see how us as fans would react. But at that point, it was just getting so old. And I appreciate now how they're giving women more chances, how they're bringing people from the independent scene, bringing people up from NXT. Oh my God, when they brought up like Keith Lee and Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair, oh my God. I was living for it. I loved that for them, but I also was scared for them because I didn't know how much they were going to change them as wrestlers. And that's what I hate. I don't like when they change them as wrestlers. So I was very scared for them, but they're actually doing very well with like Rhea and Bianca. Unfortunately, Keith Lee is not around at the moment, but they were doing great with him as well. So yeah, we're getting somewhere. We're getting somewhere, which is great. If that answered your question, I rambled a lot.
No, you did. You really answered it. So, I mean, that's good. Like, it came from an honest place, and that's a real answer,
Yeah.
because I sort of feel the same way. It's sort of like it's in a good place, but then there's so much more that could happen creatively with the women as a whole. So, I definitely agree with you in that aspect. So, and I also love what you said about the independence too. Like, everybody's sort of on their own to a degree. So, I'm still learning more and more about the independence, every other day. So,
Yes.
I'm just so this is so I appreciate this and I appreciate your answer. So that was
Oh,
good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
that was good. So, who are your top 5 wrestlers, male, female, or non-binary?
My top 5 favorite wrestlers. All right, here we go. Here we go. We love this question. So I've mentioned them before because they are my favorites. Randy Orton, he's number one. He's
Mhm.
great.
With the thumb.
Yeah, he's great. Don't make fun of me, girl.
Oh no, I'm not making fun of you. I just think it's funny because most people start number one with this finger. So you're the first person I've ever seen start with a thumb. So I wasn't making fun of you. I just thought it was different.
We love to be different here.
Yes.
That's the goal. And I said her before, Becky Lynch.
Mm-hmm.
She's also very good. And I want to switch really quick to the independent scene because I worked with her
Mm-hmm.
very recently. I just wrestled for Black Girl Magic a couple of days ago, and I finally got a chance to meet her. Willow Nightingale.
Mm-hmm.
She's beautiful. She's a great character. She's very, very good at what she does. Just being herself and I like how she's still herself, even though she's in the ring wrestling. And I don't think a lot of wrestlers have that. So like I admire that so much about her. Who else? Who else? Jeff Hardy. He was always one of my favorites. He was always one that was close to my heart as well. And you need one more. You
Mm-hmm.
need one more. You need one more. You need one more. Uh, oh, Roman Reigns. Man, we love me some Roman Reigns out here. Yes, Roman Reigns. He's developed as a wrestler so much, so much, and I love seeing that change. And that's what I hope that people see in me is the change that eventually I will develop over time. But yeah, he's great with his character as well. He's very aggressive, and I like aggressive wrestlers because I inspire to be that one day. We'll work on it. But yeah, those are definitely my top 5 for the time being.
Okay, that's a pretty solid top 5. Had a mixture of the people on TV and the people you actually work with, And I'm
Yeah.
glad you got to participate in Black Girl Magic too, because I saw a lot of people that I'm friends with post about it and everything. Like that's
Yeah.
the stuff I wish I could go to, but y'all are up there and I'm down here, so
And
down here in
I got
Alabama.
very lucky. No, I got lucky because I was just in Iowa training and going to matches, and then I came home back here in Buffalo, New York, and I hit up the promoter, and she's like, "Yep, this is my first promotion. We would love to have you on the show." And I was like, "I am there. No, no need to ask again."
Like it just seems like y'all just have so much wrestling stuff going on up in New York. I have to go. I
You
have to go
think
up there at
so?
some point. I have to.
Yeah, New York's great. Definitely
Yeah.
come see what we're about. We're great up here.
Yeah. I actually just sponsored my first event up in New York with the Jobber Tears podcast. I don't know if you ever heard of them,
I did
but
not.
yeah, Jobber Tears podcast, they're having their very first wrestling event in New York next month, called Jobber Slam with Battle Club Pro. And I actually just, help sponsor that. So that makes me feel good inside. They're like my
That's
podcasting heroes. Shout out to them. But
yeah,
please
shout out.
check them out. They're really
I
cool.
will for sure now.
Yes. So yeah. So do you feel proud to be an example of Black girl magic in wrestling?
Of course I do. Is that even a question? Man, a lot of Black girl magic has just been happening all around the world, not even in just wrestling, but just about things that's been going on in the news and just how us as Black women have really been stepping up to show people that just because of the color of our skin doesn't mean we're any less than other people. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Doesn't mean we're any less than anyone else.
Right.
So I think we're empowering each other to come out of our shells and really push and work 10 times harder to show that we're just regular people too, just our skin color is different. And that's not even a really big thing. So to be a Black woman in wrestling, I'm extremely honored. And just with that in mind, it just brings up how many firsts I want to have, just like how Sasha Banks has many firsts of her being a Black woman, how Bianca Belair, how she's coming up and being the first Black woman to do things as well. Like I inspired to do that as well because I want to be looked up to, not just in that way as a Black woman, but just being a woman in general. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So being on Black Girl Magic, there was so many, even people were crying, we were all going off the wall cheering. It was just the most amazing atmosphere you could ever imagine to be in. It was just so humble, it was just so pure, it was just, you can't replace that atmosphere. You can't always have that atmosphere everywhere you go. So if you ever get the chance to go there, I highly recommend, please go. It was a great time and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Well, definitely I will look into doing that at some point. And that was a
Yeah.
really um beautiful way to answer that question. So who are some of your dream opponents?
Dream opponents, dream opponents, dream opponents. You know, I'm gonna be different a little bit. I want to fight some men, man. I want to fight some men.
Okay. What
Um,
men do you want to fight then?
she said, "What men, girl? What men?" We're gonna try and do a little bit of both. So I honestly, one day, of course I have to. I would love to get in the ring with my trainer, Seth Rollins. I would love to. Why not, man? I would love to get in the ring with him. In the independent scene, though, there's so many talented guys out there. It's really crazy. It's hard to choose. You know what? I'm calling them all out. Come at me. I'm calling you all out. All the men on the independent scene. If you want a taste of the marionette puppet, come get it.
Well,
Um,
you heard it here. You heard it here on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Kayleena Keene is calling out every man in the independent scene.
every single
She's
one of them.
ready. She's ready to fight you all. She is not scared.
Yes. Bring the hands. Come get the hands.
That is the most ambitious thing I've ever heard on this show. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it. You
Thank
know,
you.
as
You
long as
try.
yes, as long as you're safe, that's all I care about. As long as you're
Safety
safe,
first.
yes, I'll support it.
You know, I try to tell Valentina Loco that all the time, but sometimes she has no regard for her life. And I just be like, girl, we have to be safe. We have to be safe out here. But we get it. We love wrestling. We just do what we got to do for wrestling. We love it here.
Yeah, wrestling is a very risk-taking sport. Like you have to be I imagine there's a lot of fear that you have to sort of stuff in, once you jump from places and do all kinds of different things like that. So, I have so much admiration for people who do stuff like that cuz I just know I just don't think I could do it at all.
Yeah, so much fear to conquer. There's so much fear. But then again, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, which is also a great thing to love. But it's like, why not challenge yourself? This is the time to, conquer your fear, step over that fear so you have no fear anymore. So if you want to do it, wrestling is definitely the place to do it. That's for sure. That
Definitely.
is.
Definitely at risk taking jumping and all of that. It's just so cool. All
Yeah.
right, so last question. What
Okay.
what does the future hold for Kayleena Keene?
The future. Kayleena Keene, she wants to wrestle all over. Promoters book her. She's willing to wrestle anywhere, and she's coming for anyone you put her up against. I definitely want to get out there and I just want to wrestle everywhere. I'm hoping to find more promotions here in New York. So New York promotions, hit me up. You won't get a no for an answer. And I definitely I want to learn. I want to learn from the best. I just want to have fun for right now. Of course, every wrestler has their goals and where they want to be down the line in the future. But what's next for me is honestly just to have fun wrestling. Because going back to what I was saying about all my depression and anxiety, it's very hard for me to step out of that and be present in the moment and have fun wrestling, even though wrestling is an entertainment thing, but I'm a perfectionist, unfortunately. I hate to say that about myself.
It's okay, me
But
too.
I hate it so much. But I would say that's what I want next for Kayleena Keene is to step out of her comfort zone, have fun, and wrestle whoever is willing to wrestle her. I'm down for it, man.
All right. Well, Kayleena Keene, I thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast.
Oh my God, thank
It's
you,
been
Beth.
lovely to meet you and actually talk to you a whole lot more than we did initially in our first meeting, but it was okay because we were trying to get ready for the show and stuff.
Right?
So
Like
I'm not,
chickens.
so I don't regret any of that, and don't regret talking to you either. This was amazing.
Thank you so
So
much. Oh,
yeah,
I appreciate you.
so tell everybody where they can follow you on social media and find you.
Yes, I'm very easy to find. All my social medias are just my name, Kayleena Keene, which is Kayleena space Keene, Keene, on all Facebook, like my page on Facebook, on Instagram, and on Twitter. I'm active on all of those. Hit me up. I try to reply to as many people as I can. So definitely hit me up there.
Well, thank you so much again, Kayleena, and hopefully you can come back on the show too, so we can catch up and see how you're progressing in your career and stuff. I'm really interested in that.
I would love that. I would love to see my own like progress from so I would watch this one and then when I come back on the show, I'll watch the other one and be like, wow, Kayleena Keene in 2021 didn't know what she was talking about, but we're here. We know better now.
Well, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really do hope to come back on the show again.
Yes.